Welcome back, everyone. Today we are turning our attention towards the most important person in the history of our faith, really the history of the whole world, which is Jesus Christ. There are a lot of things we can say about Jesus, about who he is, what he did, what he means to us, but where we're going to start today is with his beginning in the Incarnation. The word incarnation means literally like to become flesh. Really, it means for us the fact that Jesus became a human being, like a physical person here on earth. I'm sure you all know the story, but basically there's this young teenage girl named Mary, and an angel appears to her and says, you are going to have a son, and you are to call him Jesus, and he is the Son of the Most High, the Lord God. He is like the heir to David's throne. He is the ruler, the Messiah, all of these things. And so Mary, a little confused, eventually says yes, she's willing, she's on board. And then when the time comes for her to have the baby, she and her betrothed Joseph have to travel to Bethlehem. And the issue they find is that there's no room at the inn, everything is full, there's nowhere for them to stay, so they end up staying in one of the stables with the animals, the sheep and the donkeys and whatever. And then when Jesus is born, they lay him in a manger, which is literally like a food trough for animals where they're like eating their daily food from. And so we have God, the greatest, most powerful person, being in all of the universe, the creator of everything, who becomes a human being in the humblest of ways by being born in a stable and laid in a manger with the animals that are beneath even where humans belong. However, even though the story is so simple, the Incarnation is a huge, monumental thing that happened in our faith. And it affects so much of how we understand theology, understand each other, understand our relationship to God. Because in the Incarnation, we believe that God became flesh. That Jesus is both fully God and fully human, fully man. It can be a little confusing to say he's both fully God and fully man, but just know that it is God becoming a human being and experiencing everything that a human being goes through. All of the joys, all of the sorrows, all of the happiness, all of the sadness. And so in Jesus, we see God going through most of the struggles that we go through even today. We see God experiencing loss and sadness and pain, and we can kind of relate to those things and to know that God understands us because we know he went through them. There's kind of a silly line from a Pitbull song that says,
"This for everybody going through tough times. Believe me, been there, done that."
That the internet likes to make fun of for good reason. But for our purposes, really, this is kind of how we understand the purpose of the Incarnation. That God has gone through what we have gone through, that he has been there, done that, and that he knows our suffering, our experiences. All of the things that we're struggling with are things he can personally relate to. We mentioned before, we live in an imperfect, what we would say is fallen world. We are imperfect, fallen people who are tempted to sin, who are tempted not to choose God and choose love. But Jesus is the answer for that, the remedy for that. The Incarnation is God becoming man as a way to begin kind of this process of redemption, of salvation. God became part of his creation in order to redeem his creation. Redemption is kind of a complicated thing, but essentially what it means is that by redeeming the world and by redeeming us specifically as humans, Jesus is giving us a better way to be. He's giving us an example of how to live like this perfect, great life as he goes through the same things we're going through. As we read in the gospel, Jesus responds in a way that is always good and loving. But in addition to that, God and Jesus are giving us the ability to live that way ourselves through grace, through God's love, through God's blessing. They give us, through the sacraments even, the way to be more like God. More specifically, Christ really gives us a path to reconciliation and to healing the brokenness in the world and in us. When we think about sin, the result of sin, really the reason why sin is bad, is that it harms relationships with other people, with the world, with God. When we lie or steal or cheat, we are harming a relationship with another person. But through Christ, we see that Our relationships can be redeemed, they can be fixed, they can be made like new. Our relationships with other people can be repaired, and our relationship with God can be repaired. The specifics of what all this means are pretty complicated, and obviously in the next couple sessions we will keep talking about who Jesus is, what he did, how we can live like him, and why we should live like him. But the reality of the incarnation is that God became like us, and God became like you, so that you can become more like him.